Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Western Canon Challenge, where we are reading the entirety of the Western literary canon out loud. Today we are continuing in A Dictionary of the English Language by Samuel Johnson. We are up to the word abject, and with that said, I'll get started. Abject, adjective, from the Latin abjectus, meaning thrown away as of no value. 1. Mean, worthless, base, groveling, spoken of persons or their qualities. Came like itself in base and abject roots, led on by bloody youth and goaded with rage, and countenanced by boys and beggary. Shakespeare's Henry IV. I was at first as other beasts that graze the trodden herb of abject thoughts and low. Milton, Paradise Lost. Honest men who tell their sovereigns what they expect from them, and what obedience they shall be always ready to pay them, are not upon an equal foot with base and abject flatterers. Addison's Whig Examiner. 2. Being of no hope or regard, used of condition. The rarer thy example stands, by how much from the top of wondrous glory, strongest of mortal men, to lowest pitch of abject fortune, thou art fallen. From Milton's Samson Agonistes. We see man and woman in the highest innocence and perfection, and in most abject state of guilt and infirmity. Addison, from The Spectator. 3. Mean and despicable, used of actions. The rapine is so abject and profane, they not from trifles, nor from God's refrain. Dryden's Juvenal. To what base ends, and by what abject ways are mortals urged through sacred lust of praise? Pope's Essay on Criticism. Abject. Noun substantive, a man without hope, a man whose miseries are irretrievable, one of the lowest condition. Yea, the abjects gathered themselves together against me. From Psalms. To abject, verb active, from the Latin abjitio, meaning to throw away, a word rarely used. Abjectedness, noun from abject, the state of an abject. Our Saviour would love at no less rate than death, and from the supereminent height of glory stooped and abased himself to the sufferance of the extremest of indignities, and sunk himself to the bottom of abjectedness, to exalt our condition to the contrary extreme. From Boyle's Works. Abjection, from abject. Meanness of mind, want of spirit, servility, baseness. That this should be termed baseness, abjection of mind, or servility, is it credible? From Hooker. The just medium lies betwixt pride and abjection, the two extremes. From L'Estrange. Abjectly. Adverb, from abject, in an abject manner, meanly based, servilely, contemptibly. Abjectness, from abject. Abjection, servility, meanness. Servility and abjectness of humor is implicitly involved in the charge of lying. From Government of the Tongue. By humility I mean not the abjectness of a base mind, but a prudent care not to overvalue ourselves upon any account. From Grew's Cosmologia Sacra. Ability, from the French habilité. 1. The power to do anything, whether depending upon skill or riches or strength or any other quality. Of singing thou hast got the reputation, good Thyrsis, mine I yield to thy ability. My heart doth seek another estimation. From Sidney. If aught in my ability may serve to lighten what thou sufferest and appease thy mind with what amends is in my power. Milton's Samson Agonistes. They gave after their ability unto the treasure. From Ezra. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which God giveth, that God in all things may be glorified through Jesus Christ. 1 Peter. Wherever we find our abilities too weak for the performance, he assures us of the assistance of his Holy Spirit. Rogers' Sermons. 2. Capacity of mind, force of understanding, mental power. Children in whom there was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace. From the Book of Daniel. 3. When it has the plural number, abilities, it frequently signifies the faculties or powers of the mind, and sometimes the force of understanding given by nature, as distinguished from acquired qualifications. Whether it may be thought necessary that in certain tracts of country, like what we call parishes, there should be one man, at least, of abilities to read and write. From Swift. Abintastate. Adjective. From ab, meaning from, and the Latin word intestatus. A term of law, implying him that inherits from a man, who, though he had the power to make a will, yet did not make it. To abjugate. Verb active. To unyoke, to uncouple. Abjuration. Noun substantive, from abjure. The act of abjuring, the oath taken for that end. Until Henry VIII, his time, if a man having committed felony could go into a church or churchyard before he were apprehended, he might not be taken from thence to the usual trial of law, but confessing his fault to the justices or to the coroner, gave his oath to forsake the realm forever, which was called abjuration. There are some abjurations still in force among us here in England, as by the statute of the 25th of King Charles II, all persons that are admitted into any office, civil or military, must take the test, which is an abjuration of some doctrines of the Church of Rome. There is likewise another oath of abjuration, which laymen and clergymen are both obliged to take, and that is to abjure the pretender. From Aeliff's Paragon Juris Canonici. To abjure, from the Latin abjuro. 1. To cast off upon oath, to swear not to do or not to have something. Either to die the death, or to abjure forever the society of man. From Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. No man, therefore, that hath not abjured his reason, and sworn allegiance to a preconceived fantastical hypothesis, can undertake the defense of such a supposition. From Hale. 2. To retract, recant, or abnegate a position upon oath. To ablectate, verb active, from the Latin ablacto, meaning to wean from the breast. Ablectation, noun substantive, one of the methods of grafting, and according to the signification of the word, as it were a weaning of a scion by degrees from its mother's stock, not cutting it off wholly from the stock, till it is firmly united to that on which it is grafted. Oblequiation, noun substantive, the art or practice of opening the ground about the roots of trees, to let air and water operate upon them. Trench the ground and make it ready for the spring. Prepare also soil, and use it where you have occasion. Dig borders. Uncover as yet roots of trees where oblequiation is requisite. From Evelyn's Calendar. The tenure in chief is the very root that doth maintain this silver stem, that by many rich and fruitful branches spreadeth itself, So if it be suffered to starve by want of oblequiation and other good husbandry, this yearly fruit will much decrease. From Bacon's Office of Alienations. Ablation, noun substantive, from the Latin ablatio, meaning the act of taking away. Ablative, noun active, from the Latin ablativus. 1. That which takes away. 2. The sixth case of the Latin nouns, the case which, among the other significations, includes the person from whom something is taken away. A term of grammar. Able, adjective, skillful, ready. 1. Having strong faculties, or great strength or knowledge, riches, or any other power of mind, body, or fortune. Henry VII was not afraid of an able man, as Louis XI was, but contrariwise he was served by the ablest men that were to be found, without which his affairs could not have been prospered as they did. From Bacon's Henry VII. Such gamble faculties he hath, that show a weak mind in an able body, for the which the prince admits him. Shakespeare, Henry IV. 2. Having power sufficient, enabled. All mankind acknowledge themselves able and sufficient to do many things, which actually they never do. From South's Sermons. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. From Deuteronomy. 3. Before a verb, which the particle to, it signifies generally having the power. Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? Proverbs. 4. With for, F-O-R, it is not often or very properly used. There have been some inventions also, which have been able for the utterance of articulate sounds as the speaking of certain words. From Wilkins' Mathematical Magic. To able. Verb active, to make able, to enable, which is the word commonly used. Also see enable. Plate sin with gold, and the strong lance of justice hurdles breaks. Arm it with rags, a pygmy's straw doth pierce it. None does offend, none, I say none, I'll able him. Take that of me, my friend. Shakespeare's King Lear. Able-bodied. Adjective, meaning strong of body. It lies in the power of every fine woman to secure at least half a dozen able-bodied men to his Majesty's service. From Addison, Freeholder. To obligate. Verb active. To send abroad upon some employment. To send out of the way. Obligation. Noun substantive. The act of sending abroad. Ableness. Noun substantive. Ability of body or mind, vigor or force. That nation doth so excel, both for comeliness and ableness, that from neighbor countries they ordinarily come, some to strive, some to learn, some to behold. Sidney. Abelepsy. Noun substantive. Want of sight, blindness, unadvisedness. To obligate. Verb active. To tie up from. Obligarition. Noun substantive. Prodigal expense on meat and drink. To oblocate. Verb active. To let out, to hire. Perhaps properly by him who has hired it from another. Calvin's Lexicon Juridicum. Oblocation. Noun substantive. A letting out to hire. To oblude. Verb neuter. To be unlike. Abluent. Adjective. 1. That which washes clean. 2. That which has the power of cleansing. Ablution. Noun substantive. 1. The act of cleansing or washing clean. There is a natural analogy between the ablution of the body and the purification of the soul, between eating the holy bread and drinking the sacred chalice, and a participation of the body and blood of Christ. Taylor's Worthy Communicant. 2. The water used in washing. Washed by the briny wave, the pious trains are cleansed and cast the ablutions in the main. Pope's Iliad. 3. The rinsing of chemical preparations in water, to dissolve and wash away any acrimonious particles. 4. The cup given without consecration to the laity in the popish churches. To abnegate. Verb active, meaning to deny. Abnegation. Noun substantive, meaning denial, renunciation. The abnegation or renouncing of all his own holds and interests, and trust of all that man is most apt to depend upon, that he may the more expeditely follow Christ. Hammond. Abnodation. Noun substantive. The act of cutting away knots from trees, a term of gardening. Abnormous. Adjective, meaning irregular, misshapen. Aboard. Adverb. A sea term that adopted into common language derived immediately from the French aboard, as aller aboard, envoyer aboard. Board is itself a word of very doubtful original, and perhaps in its different acceptations deducible from different roots. It goes on to give a Saxon definition, of which the original word I cannot pronounce, but it means in the ancient Saxon signified a house, in which sense to go aboard is to take up residence in a ship. 1. Aboard, meaning in a ship. He loudly called to such as were aboard the little bark unto the shore to draw, and him to ferry over that deep ford. Spenser, the Faerie Queene. He might land them if it pleased him, or otherwise keep them aboard. From Sir Walter Raleigh's Essays. 2. Aboard, meaning into a ship. When a morning rose, I sent my mates to bring supplies of water from a neighboring spring, whilst I the motions of the winds explored, then summoned my crew, and went aboard. Addison's Ovid's Metamorphoses. Abode. Noun substantive, from abide, meaning 1. Habitation, dwelling, place of residence. But I know thy abode, and thy going out and thy coming in. 2 Kings. Others may use the ocean as their road, only the English make it their abode, whose ready sails with every wind can fly, and make a covenant with an inconsistent fly. Waller. 2. Stay, continuance in a place. Sweet friends, your patience for my long abode, not I but my affairs have made you wait. Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. Making a short abode in Sicily the second time, landing in Italy, and making the war, may be reasonably judged the business but of 10 months. Dryden's Dedication to Aeneid. The woodcock's early visit and abode of long continuance in our temperate clime foretell a liberal harvest. Phillips. 3. To make abode, to dwell, to reside, to inhabit. Deep in a cave the Sibyl makes abode, thence full of fate returns, and of the god. Dryden, Aeneid. To abode, verb active, to foretoken or foreshow, to be a prognostic, to be ominous. It is taken with its derivatives in the sense either of good or ill. Every man, after the hideous storm that followed, was a thing inspired, and not consulting, broke into a general prophecy that this tempest, dashing the garments of this peace, aboded the sudden breach of it. Shakespeare's Henry VIII. Abodement. Noun substantive. From to abode. A secret anticipation of something future. An impression upon the mind of some event to come. Prognostication. Omen. I liked not this, for many men that stumble at the threshold are well foretold that danger lurks within. Tush, man, abodements must not now affright us. Shakespeare's Henry VI. My lord bishop asked him whether he had never any secret abodement in his mind. No, replied the duke, but I think some adventure may kill me as well as another man. Wotan. To abolish. Verb active. 1. To annul, to make void, applied to laws or institutions. For us to abolish what he hath established were a presumption most intolerable. Hooker. On the Parliament's part, it was proposed that all the bishops, deans, and chapters might be immediately taken away and abolished. Clarendon. 2. To put an end to destroy. The long-continued wars between the English and the Scots had then raised invincible jealousies and hate, which long-continued peace hath since abolished. Sir John Hayward. That shall Pericles well requite, I wot, and with thy blood abolish so reproachful blot. Spenser's Faerie Queene. More destroyed than they, we should be quite abolished and expire. Milton. Or wilt thou thyself abolish thy creation and unmake for him what for thy glory thou hast made? Milton. Nor could Vulcanian flame the stench abolish, or the savour tame. Dryden. Fermented spirits contract, harden, and consolidate many fibres together, abolishing many canals, especially where the fibres are the tenderest, as in the brain. Arbuthnot on ailments. Abolishable. Adjective. That which may be abolished. Abolisher. Noun substantive. From abolish, meaning he that abolishes. Abolishment. Noun substantive. From abolish, meaning the act of abolishing. The plain and direct way had been to prove that all such ceremonies as they require to be abolished are retained by us with the hurt of the Church, or with less benefit than the abolishment of them would bring. Hooker. He should think the abolishment of episcopacy among us would prove a mighty scandal and corruption to our faith, and manifestly dangerous to our monarchy. Swift's Church of England. Abolition. Noun substantive. From abolish. The act of abolishing. This is now more frequently used than abolishment. From the total abolition of the popular power may be dated the ruin of Rome, for had the reducing hereof to its ancient condition proposed by Agrippa been accepted instead of Messina's model, that the state might have continued unto this day. Grew's Cosmologia Sacra. An apoplexy is a sudden abolition of all the senses, and of all voluntary motion, by the stoppage of the flux and reflux of the animal spirits through the nerves destined for those motions. Arbuthnot on diet. Abominable. Adjective. Meaning 1. Hateful, detestable, to be loathed. This infernal pit, abominable, accursed, the house of woe. Milton. The Queen and the ministry might easily redress this abominable grievance by endeavoring to choose men of virtuous principles. Swift's Project for the Advancement of Religion. 2. Unclean. The soul that shall touch any unclean beast or any abominable unclean thing, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Leviticus. 3. In low and ludicrous language, It is a word of loose and indeterminate censure. They say you are a melancholy fellow. I am so. I do love it better than laughing. Those that are in extremity of either are abominable fellows, and betray themselves to every modern censure worse than drunkards. Shakespeare's As You Like It. Abominableness. Noun substantive. The quality of being abominable. Hatefulness, odiousness. Till we have proved in its proper place the eternal and essential difference between virtue and vice, we must forbear to urge atheists with the corruption and abominableness of their principles. Bentley's Sermons. Abominably. Adverb. From abominable. A word of low or familiar language, signifying excessively, extremely, exceedingly, in an ill sense. It is not often seriously used. I have observed great abuses and disorders in your family. Your servants are mutinous and quarrelsome, and cheat you most abominably. Arbuthnot. To abominate. Verb active. To abhor, detest, hate utterly. Pride goes, hated, cursed, and abominated by all. Hammond. We are not guilty of your injuries, no way consent to them, but do abhor, abominate, and loathe this cruelty. Southern's Oronoco. He professed both to abominate and despise all mystery, refinement, and intrigue, either in a prince or minister. Swift. Abomination. Noun substantive. 1. Hatred, detestation. To assist King Charles by English or Dutch forces would render him odious to his new subjects, who have nothing in so great abomination as those whom they hold for heretics. Swift. 2. The object of hatred. Every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. Genesis. 3. Pollution, defilement. And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie. Revelation. 4. Wickedness, hateful or shameful vice. The adulterous Antony, most large in his abominations, turns you off, and gives his potent regiment to a troll that noses it against us. Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. 5. The cause of pollution. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mount of corruption which Solomon the king of Israel had builded for Ashtoreth, and for Chemosh the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom the abomination of the children of Ammon did the king defile. 2 Kings. Aborigines. Noun substantive. The earliest inhabitants of a country, those of whom no original is to be traced, as the Welsh in Britain. To abort. Verb neuter. To bring forth before the time, to miscarry. Abortion. Noun substantive. 1. The act of bringing forth untimely. These then need cause no abortion. Sandys. 2. The produce of an untimely birth. His wife miscarried, but as the abortion proved only a female fetus, he comforted himself. Arbuthnot and Pope's Martinus Scriblerus. Behold my arm thus blasted, dry and withered, shrunk like a foul abortion and decayed, like some untimely product of the seasons. Rowe. Abortive. Noun substantive. That which is born before the due time, perhaps anciently anything irregularly produced. No common wind, no customed event, but they will pluck away its natural causes, and call them meteors, prodigies, and signs, abortives and presages, tongues of heaven, plainly denouncing vengeance upon John. Shakespeare's King John. Take the fine skin of an abortive, and with the starch thin laid on, prepare your ground or tablet. Peacham on Drawing. Many are preserved and do signal service to their country, who without a provision might have perished as abortives, or have come to an untimely end, and perhaps have brought upon their guilty parents like the destruction. Addison, Guardian. Abortive. Adjective. 1. That which is brought forth before the due time of birth. If ever he have child, abortive be it, prodigious and untimely brought to light. Shakespeare, Richard III. All the unaccomplished works of nature's hand, abortive, monstrous, or unkindly mixed, dissolved on earth, fleet hither. Milton's Paradise Lost. Nor will his fruit expect the autumnal season, but in summer's pride, when other orchards smile, abortive fail. Phillips. 2. Figuratively, that which fails for want of time. How often hast thou waited at my cup? Remember it, and let it make thee crestfallen. And allay this thy abortive pride. Shakespeare, Henry VI. 3. That which brings forth nothing. The void profound of unessential night receives him next. Wide gaping, and with utter loss of being, threatens him plunged in that abortive gulf. Milton's Paradise Lost. 4. That which fails or miscarries from whatever cause. This is less proper. Many politic conceptions, so elaborately formed and wrought, and grown at length ripe for delivery, do yet, in the issue, miscarry and prove abortive. South's Sermons. Abortively. Adverb. From abortive. Born without the due time. Immaturely, untimely. Abortiveness. Noun substantive. From abortive. The state of abortion. Abortment. Noun substantive. From abort. The thing brought forth out of time. An untimely birth. Concealed treasures, now lost to mankind, shall be brought into use by the industry of converted penitents, whose wretched carcasses the impartial laws dedicate as untimely feasts to the worms of the earth, in whose womb these deserted mineral riches must ever lie buried as lost abortments, unless those be made the active midwives to deliver them. Bacon's Physical Remains. Above. Preposition. 1. To a higher place, in a higher place. So when with crackling flames a cauldron fries, the bubbling waters from the bottom rise. Above the brims they force their fiery way, black vapors climb aloft, and cloud the day. Dryden, Aeneid. 2. More in quantity or number. Every one that passeth among them that are numbered from 20 years old and above shall give an offering unto the Lord. Exodus. 3. In a superior degree, or to be a superior degree of rank, power, or excellence. The Lord is high above all nations, and his glory above the heavens. Psalm. The public power of all societies is above every soul contained in the same societies. Hooker. There is no richness above a sound body, and no joy above the rest of the heart. Ecclesiasticus. To her thou didst resign thy manhood, and the place wherein God set thee above her, made of thee and for thee, whose perfection far excelled hers in all real dignity. Milton's Paradise Lost. Latona sees her shine above the rest, and feeds with secret joy her silent breast. Dryden's Aeneid. 4. In a state of being superior to, unattainable joy. It is an old and true distinction that things may be above our reason, without being contrary to it. Of this kind are the power, the nature, and the universal presence of God, with innumerable other points. Swift. 5. Beyond, more than. We were pressed out of measure, above strength, insomuch that we despaired even of life. 2 Corinthians. In having thoughts unconfused, and being able to distinguish one thing from another, where there is but the least difference, consists the exactness of judgment and clearness of reason, which is in one man above another. Locke. The inhabitants of Tyrol have many privileges above those of the other hereditary countries of the emperor. Addison. 6. Too proud for, too high for. A phrase chiefly used in familiar expression. Kings and princes in the earlier ages of the world labored in arts and occupations, and were above nothing that tended to promote the conveniences of life. Pope's Odyssey. Notes. Above. Adverb. 1. Overhead, in a higher place. To men standing below, men standing aloft seem much lessened. To those above, men standing below seem not so much lessened. Bacon. When he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave to the sea his decree, that the waters should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. Proverbs. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. James. The Trojans from above their foes beheld, and with armed legions all the rampires filled. Dryden, Aeneid. 2. In the regions of heaven. Your praise the birds shall chant in every grove, and winds shall waft it to the powers above. Pope's Pastorals. 3. Before. See above cited. I said above that these two machines of the balance and the dira were only ornamental, and that the success of the duel had been the same without them. Dryden, The Dedication to Aeneid. Above all, in the first place chiefly. I studied Virgil's design, his disposition of it, his manners, his judicious management of the figures, the sober retrenchments of his sense, which always leaves something to gratify your imagination, on which it may enlarge at pleasure, but above all, the elegance of his expression and the harmony of his numbers. Dryden's Dedication to Aeneid. Above board. 1. In open sight, without artifice or trick. A figurative expression borrowed from gamesters, who, when they put their hands under the table, are changing their cards. It is used only in familiar language. It is the part also of an honest man to deal above board without tricks. Lestrange. 2. Without disguise or concealment. Though there have not been wanting such heretofore as have been practised these unworthy arts, for as much as there have been villains in all places, and all ages, yet nowadays they are owned above board. South's Sermons. Above cited. Cited before. A figurative expression taken from the ancient manner of writing books on scrolls, where whatever is cited or mentioned before in the same page must be above. It appears from the authority above cited that this is a fact confessed by heathens themselves. Addison on the Christian Religion. Above ground. An expression used to signify alive, not in the grave. Above mentioned. See above cited. I do not remember that Homer anywhere falls into faults above mentioned, which were indeed the false refinements of latter ages. Addison, Spectator. To abound. Verb neuter. 1. To have in great plenty, to be copiously stored. It is used sometimes with the particle in, and sometimes the particle with. The king becoming graces, I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting in many ways. Shakespeare's Macbeth. Corn, wine, and oil are wanting to this ground, in which our countries fruitfully abound. Dryden's Indian Emperor. A faithful man shall abound with blessings, but he that maketh haste to be rich shall not be innocent. Proverbs. Now that languages are made, and abound with words standing for combinations, an usual way of getting complex ideas is by the explication of those terms that stand for them. Locke. 2. To be in great plenty. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Matthew. Words are like leaves, and where they most abound, much fruit of sense beneath is rarely found. Pope's Essay on Criticism. About. Preposition. 1. Round, surrounding, encircling. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck, write them upon the table of thy heart. Proverbs. She cries and tears her cheeks, her hair, her vest, and stooping to the sands, about his neck she cast her trembling hands. Dryden's Fables. 2. Near to. Speak unto the congregation, saying, Get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Exodus. Thou dost nothing, Sergius, thou canst endeavor nothing, nay, not think. But I both see and hear it, and am with thee, by and before, about and in thee too. Ben Jonson, Catiline. 3. Concerning, with regard to, relating to. When Constantine had finished a house for the service of God at Jerusalem, the dedication he judged a matter not unworthy about the solemn performance whereof the greatest part of the bishops in Christendom should meet together. Hooker. The painter is not to take so much pains about the drapery as about the face where the principal resemblance lies. Dryden. They are most frequently used as words equivalent, and do both of them indifferently signify either a speculative knowledge of things or a practical skill about them, according to the exigency of the matter or thing spoken of. Tillow, Sermon. Theft is always a sin, although the particular species of it, and the denomination of particular acts, doth suppose positive laws about dominion and property. Stillingfleet. Children should always be heard, and fairly and kindly answered when they ask for anything they would know and desire to be informed about. Curiosity should be as carefully cherished in children as other appetites suppressed. Locke. It hath been practiced as a method of making men's court, when they are asked about the rate of lands, the abilities of tenants, the state of trade, to answer that all things are in a flourishing condition. Swift's Short View of Ireland. 4. In a state of being engaged in or employed upon. Our blessed Lord was pleased to command the representation of his death and sacrifice on the cross should be made by breaking of bread and effusion of wine, to signify to us the nature and sacredness of the liturgy we are about. Taylor. Labor, for labor's sake, is against nature. The understanding, as well as all the other faculties, chooses always the shortest way to its end, would presently obtain the knowledge it is about, and then set upon some new inquiry. But this, whether laziness or haste, often misleads it. Locke. Our armies ought to be provided with secretaries to tell their story in plain English, and to let us know in our mother tongue what it is our brave countrymen are about. Addison, Spectator. 5. A pendant to the person, as clothes. If you have this about you, as I will give you when we go, you may boldly assault the necromancer's hall. Milton's Conus. It is not strange to me that persons of the fairer sex should like in all things about them that handsomeness for which they find themselves most liked. Boyle on Colors. 6. Relating to the person as a servant or dependent. Liking very well the young gentleman, such I took him to be, admitted his Diophantus about me, who well showed there is no service like his that serves because he loves. Sidney. 7. Relating to a person as an act or office. Good corporal, for my old dame's sake, stand, my friend. She hath no body to do anything about her when I am gone, and she is old and cannot help herself. Shakespeare's Henry IV. About. Adverb. 1. Circularly and around, circum. The wayward sisters hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about, about. Thrice to thine, and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Shakespeare's Macbeth. 2. In a circuit, and compass. I'll tell you what I am about. 2 yards and more. No quips now, pistol. Indeed, I am the waist 2 yards about, but I am about no waste. I am about thrift. Shakespeare. A ton about was every pillar there, a polished mirror shone not half so clear. Dryden, Fables. 3. Nearly, Surcitor. When the boats were come within about 60 yards of the pillar, they found themselves all abound, and could go no farther, yet as though they might move to go about, but might not approach nearer. Bacon's New Atalantis. 4. Here and there, every way, Circa. Up rose the gentle virgin from her place, and looked all about if she might spy her lovely knight. Spenser, the Faerie Queen. A wolf that was past labor in his old age borrows a habit, and so about he goes, begging charity from door to door, under the disguise of a pilgrim. L'Estrange. 5. With to before a verb, as about to fly, upon the point within small distance of. These dying lovers and their floating sons suspend the fight and silence all our guns. Beauty and youth about to perish finds such noble pity in brave English minds. Waller. 6. Round, the longest way in opposition to the short, straight way. Gold hath these natures, greatness of weight, closeness of parts, fixation, pliantness or softness, immunity from rust, color or tincture of yellow. Therefore the sure way, though most about, to make gold is to know the cause of the several natures before rehearsed. Bacon's Natural History. Spies of the Volscians held me in chase, that I was forced to wheel 3 or 4 miles about, else had I, sir, half an hour since brought my report. Shakespeare, Coriolanus. 7. To bring about, to bring to the point or state desired, as he has brought about his purposes. Whether this will be brought about by breaking his head, I very much question. Spectator. 8. To come about, to come to some certain state or point. It is commonly the idea of revolution or gyration. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about, after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son. 1 Samuel. One evening it befell that looking out, the wind they long had wished was come about. Well pleased they went to rest, and if the gale till morn continued, both resolved to sail. Dryden, Fables. 9. To go about, to prepare to do it. Did not Moses give you the law? And yet none of you keepeth the law. Why go you about to kill me? John. In common language, they say to come about a man to circumvent him. Some of these phrases seem to derive their original from French roots. A. Uppercase B, lowercase p. ABP for Archbishop. Which C. Abracadabra. A superstitious charm against agues. To upbraid. Verb active. To rub off, to wear away from the other parts, to waste by degrees. By this means there may be a continued supply of what is successively upbraided from them by discursion of waters. Hail. Abraham's balm, the name of an herb. Abrasion. Noun substantive. 1. The act of abrading or rubbing off. 2. In medicine, the wearing away of the natural mucus which covers the membranes, particularly those of the stomach and guts, by corrosive or sharp medicines or humors. Quincy. 3. The matter worn off by the attrition of bodies. Abreast. Adverb. See breast. Side by side in such a position that the breast may bear against the same line. My cousin Suffolk, my soul shall thine keep company to heaven. Tarry, sweet soul, for mine, then fly abreast. Shakespeare, Henry V. For honor travels in a strait so narrow where one but goes abreast. Shakespeare, Troilus and Cressida. The riders rode abreast, and one his shield, his lance of cornel wood another held. Dryden's Fables. Apricot. See apricot. To abridge. Verb active. 1. To make shorter in words, keeping still the same substance. All these sayings were being declared by Jason of Cyrene in 5 books, we will essay to abridge in 1 volume. 2 Maccabees. 2. To contract, to diminish, to cut short. The determination of the will, upon inquiry, is following the direction of that guide, and he that has a power to act not to act, according as such determination directs, is free. Such determination abridges not that power wherein liberty consists. Locke. 3. To deprive of, to cut off from, in which sense it is followed by the particle from or of, preceding the thing taken away. I have disabled mine estate by showing something a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance, nor do I now make moan to be abridged from such a noble rate. Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. They were formerly by the common law discharged from pontage and murrage, but this privilege has been abridged them since by several statutes. Aeliff's Paradron Juris Canonici. Abridged of. Participle. Deprived of, debarred from, cut short. Abridger. Noun substantive. 1. He that abridges, a shortener. 2. A writer of compendiums or abridgments. Abridgment. Noun substantive. 1. The epitome of a larger work, contracted into a small compass, a compend, a summary. Surely this commandment containeth the law and the prophets, and in this one word is the abridgment of all volumes of Scripture. Hooker. Idolatry is certainly the firstborn of folly, the great and leading paradox, nay, the very abridgment and sum total of all absurdities. South's Sermons. 2. a diminution in general. All trying by a love of littleness to make abridgments and to draw to less, even that nothing which at first we were. Dawn. 3. Contraction, reduction. The constant desire of happiness, and the constant constraint it puts upon us, no body, I think, accounts an abridgment of liberty, or at least an abridgment of liberty to be complained of. Locke. 4. Restraint from anything pleasing, contraction of anything enjoyed. It is not barely a man's abridgment in his external accommodations which makes him miserable, but when his conscience shall tell him that it was his sin and his folly which brought him under that abridgment. South. Abroach. Adverb. 1. In a posture to run out, or yield the liquor contained, properly spoken of vessels. The jars of generous wine he set abroached for the feast prepared. Dryden, Virgil. The Templar spruce, while every spout's a broach, stays till 'tis fair, yet seems to call a coach. Swift's Miscellanies. 2. In a figurative sense, in a state to be diffused or extended, in a state of such beginning as promises a progress. That man that sits within a monarch's heart, and ripens in the sunshine of his favor, would he abuse the countenance of the king? Alack, what mischiefs might be set abroach in shadow of such greatness! Shakespeare's Henry IV. Abroad. Adverb. A compounded of a and broad. Also see broad. 1. Without confinement, widely, at large. Intermit no watch against a wakeful foe, while I abroad through all the coasts of dark destruction seek deliverance. Milton's Paradise Lost. Again the lonely fox roams far abroad on secret rapine bent and midnight fraud, now haunts the cliff, now traverses the lawn, and flies the hated neighborhood of man. Prior. 2. Out of the house. Welcome, sir. This cell's my court. Here have I few attendants, and subjects none abroad. Shakespeare's Tempest. Lady walked a whole hour abroad without dying after it. Pope's Letters. 3. In another country. They thought it better to be somewhat hardly yoked at home than for ever abroad and discredited. Hooker. Preface. Whosoever offers at verbal translation shall have the misfortune of that young traveller who lost his own language abroad and brought home no other instead of it. Sir J. Denham. What learn our youth abroad but to refine the homely vices of their native land? Dryden. He who sojourns in a foreign country refers what he sees and hears abroad to the state of things at home. Atterb Sermons. 4. In all directions, this way and that, with wide expansion. Full in the midst of this infernal road, an elm displays her dusky arms abroad. Dryden, Virgil's Aeneid. 5. Without, not within. Bodies politic being subject, as much as natural, to dissolution, by divers means, there are undoubtedly more states overthrown through diseases bred with themselves than through violence from abroad. Hooker, Dedication. To abrogate. Verb active, to take away from a law its force, to repeal, to annul. Laws have been made upon special occasions, which occasions, ceasing, laws of that kind do abrogate themselves. Hooker. The negative precepts of men may cease by many instruments, by contrary customs, by public disrelish, by long omission, but the negative precepts of God never can cease, but when they are expressly abrogated by the same authority. Taylor's Rule of Living Holy. Abrogation. Noun substantive. The act of abrogating, the repeal of a law. The commissioners from the Confederate Roman Catholics demanded the abrogation and repeal of all those laws which were in force against the exercise of the Roman religion. Clarendon. To abrook. Verb active. From to brook, with a superabundant, a word not in use. To brook, to bear, to endure. Sweet Nell, ill can thy noble mind abrook the abject people gazing on thy face with envious looks, still laughing at thy shame. Shakespeare's Henry VI. Abrupt. Adjective. From the Latin abruptus, meaning broken off. 1. Broken, craggy. Resistless roaring, dreadful, down it comes from the rude mountain and the mossy wild, tumbling through rocks abrupt. Thomas Winter. 2. Divided without anything intervening, or spread his airy flight, upborne with indefatigable wings over the vast abrupt, ere he arrive the happy isle. Milton's Paradise Lost. 3. Sudden, without the customary of proper preparatives. My lady craves to know the cause of your abrupt departure. Shakespeare. The abrupt and unkind breaking off of the 2 first parliaments was wholly imputed to the Duke of Buckingham. Clarendon. Abrupt with eagle speed she cut the sky, instant invisible to mortal eye. Then first he recognized the ethereal guest. Pope's Odyssey. 4. Unconnected. The abrupt style, which hath many breaches and doth not seem to end but fall. Ben Jonson's Discourse. Abrupted, adjective. From abruptus, Latin, a word little in use, meaning broken off suddenly. The effects of their activity are not precipitously abrupted, but gradually proceed to their cessations. Brown's Vulgar Errors. Abruption. Noun substantive. From abruptio, Latin. Breaking off, violent and sudden separation. Those which are enclosed in stone, marble, or such other solid matter, being difficultly separable from it, because of its adhesion to all sides of them, have commonly some of that matter still adhering to them, or at least marks of its abruption from them on all their sides. Woodward, Natural History. Abruptly, adverb, see abrupt. Hastily, without the due forms of preparation. The sweetness of virtue's disposition, jealous even over itself, suffered her not to enter abruptly into questions of Musidorus. Sidney. Now missing from their joy, so lately found and so abruptly gone. Paradise Regained. They, both of them, punctually observed the time, thus agreed upon, and that whatever company or business they were engaged in, they left it abruptly as soon as the clock warned them to retire. Addison, Spectator. Abruptness. Noun substantive, from abrupt. 1. An abrupt manner, haste, suddenness, untimely vehemence. 2. The state of an abrupt or broken thing. Roughness, cragginess as of a fragment violently disjoined. The crystallized bodies found in their perpendicular intervals have always their root, as the jewelers call it, which is only the abruptness at the end of the body, whereby it adhered to the stone, or the sides of the intervals, which abruptness is caused by its being broke off from the said stone. Woodward's Natural History. Abscess. From abscessus, Latin. A morbid cavity in the body, a tumor filled with matter, a term of chirurgery. If the patient is not relieved nor dies in 8 days, the inflammation ends in a suppuration and an abscess in the lungs, and sometimes in some other part of the body. Arbuthnot of diet. Lindenius conjectured it might be some hidden abscess in the mesentery, which, breaking some few days after, was discovered to be an aposteme of the mesentery. Harvey on consumptions. To abscend. To cut off, either in a natural or figurative sense. Abscissa. Latin. Part of the diameter of a conic section intercepted between the vertex and a semi-ordinate. Abscission. Noun substantive. 1. The act of cutting off. Fabricius ab Aquapendente renders the abscission of them difficult enough, and not without danger. Wiseman's surgery. 2. The state of being cut off. By cessation of oracles, with Montacutius, we may understand this intercision, not abscission or consummate desolation. Brown's Vulgar Errors. To abscond. Verb neuter. From the Latin abscondo. To hide oneself, to retire from the public view, generally used of persons in debt or criminals eluding the law. The marmot or mus alpinus, which absconds all winter, lives on its own fat. For in autumn, when it shuts itself up in its hole, it is very fat, but in the springtime, when it comes forth again, very lean. Ray on the Creation. Absconder. Noun substantive, from abscond, the person that absconds. This is the end of Part 2 of Samuel Johnson's A Dictionary of the English Language, covering the words abject up to absconder. In the next video, we will continue with the dictionary with the word absence. Thank you for listening.